Meeting is being live streamed. By staying in this meeting, you consent to be live streamed. Anyone who access live stream can watch or share with others. Got it. The meeting is now streaming live on YouTube. Streaming on YouTube. And live stream. By staying in this meeting,
Okay, Andrew, I think we're good. Open the July 21st meeting. Zoning board of review. I'm chairman. Hang on a second, Andrew. How about now? And can you hear me now? But I can hear me now too. I can hear Andrew. Yep. Mr. Colombo, are you able to hear us?
Yes.
Great. Okay, let's proceed. As I was saying, to my right is Jason None, Michael Alves, Vice Chairman Barrett Colby, Jason Nystrom, and Chuck Tibbet. We have a quorum, those 6 members present. One alternate, Mr. Alves, is sitting as the alternate tonight. If the matter is continued to a date, and anyone needs to recuse themselves, you will be able to sit and hear the matter. First agenda item, we have 2 months worth of minutes to approve, May 19th and June 16th. Any comments on the minutes, or is there a motion?
This is Mr. Rainone. I will move approval of both sets of minutes as circulated.
I'll second it, Chuck. Do we need to poll everyone still? Do we need to poll?
No, you're all here.
No. Do we need to poll for the voting so we can each be on the record?
Mr. Nystrom?
Aye.
Mr. Holby?
Aye.
Mr. Renown?
Aye.
Mr. Ellis?
Aye. Okay, the minutes are approved. We're going, did you vote, Chuck? Aye. We're going to rearrange the agenda slightly under new business in that we are going to hear application 2139 first, since it is sort of an administrative thing. We're seeking an extension of the variance. Nicholas Colombo, the owner and applicant of 47 Shore Drive, flat 17, lot 41. He's requesting that we extend a variance under 3277 and 3289 to demolish and replace the dwelling less than the required front and side yard setback and exceeds the allowable lot coverage. Also, he's seeking an on-site wastewater treatment system within 150 feet of a body of water in the R40 district. So, Mr. Colombo, you're on Zoom, I believe.
That's correct. How are you?
Is that the most we can hear him?
Can you hear me clearly?
Yeah. Is it possible that he can be on the TV?
No.
I get my chair.
Yes.
Mr. Palumbo?
Yes, good evening.
I don't know what I'm doing. I don't even know how I got on. Just get-
We'll listen closely. So, Mr. Palumbo, why don't you just tell us why you're would like the board to approve an extension of variance
Good for you.
previously granted?
Yes,
It's already in. Oh, no, it'll be in a minute. I'll put it in a minute.
Hey, if you're not talking right now, could you mute yourself, please?
No, I accept.
Palumbo, go ahead.
Is it loud?
Yeah.
I'm seeking an extension related to COVID delays. During that period of time that I did have the variance, I encountered several delays in construction with my general contractor and aligning all the activities up to basically complete it or even start related to the variance that was granted me by the town of Warren. All my other permits are active and ready to go. This is the only one that is holding up the process from continuing. So with that said, I ask for a year extension so that I can go ahead and proceed with all the work I have prepared thus far and continue to move the project forward and build a home.
Mr. Palumbo, just so you know, the ordinance in Warren allows only for a 6-month extension.
6 month.
I don't think this is the thing.
No?
No, I think it's something else.
It,
You just get shot out of the sky.
I want to make it clear, he has to start work within the period of extension, right? He has to finish his project.
Right, he has to pull a
He has
permit
to
to
get it
start
started.
within the next 6 months
Within 6 months of within 6 months of the expiration date,
of the,
which is already passed by some time. When was the expiration of the original one?
it was July 13th.
July 3rd, so we're only a week past.
I filed for the extension on
Months
June
from
30th.
July 13th, full as permit for the project.
well, Mr. Palumbo, you filed the application on June 30th. I mean, you would have needed technically to file the extension in May. To meet the time for us to schedule a July meeting, but
I have been,
That is in May. He's here. The
Yeah.
thing expired on.
Yeah.
He's asking for 6 months, from the 13th of July, which will be the 13th of January, in 2022, to full his permit.
6 months would be sufficient for me. I understand you don't grant a year, 6 months is sufficient. Like I said, I have everything in line and prepared to move forward. I have activated my septic. I'm preparing to demo the home imminently, pull permits for demolition and begin construction immediately. So as long as I have that 6 month extension of the variance, I know the town of Warren also wants this to move along as well. So I just think that if the 6 months is granted, I can complete all of what I'm asking to do here.
Okay, and so the extenuating circumstances that caused the extension to be needed due to COVID and probably general contracting and other unforeseen circumstances that developed.
Yes, also, I just transferred the deed to myself about a month ago from my father, who's also participating. I bought the home from him a month ago, and he obviously, as you can see, he has health issues, and that puts us all at risk during COVID. So just a number of those things compounding just delayed us. So I appreciate you
All
guys
right, we understand.
it's out here.
Do the board members have any questions for the applicant about the need for the extension?
I do not have a question for the applicant. I do have a question for council. We do not need to reconsider or reevaluate any of the original supporting evidence. This is only, is there cause for an extension?
Exactly, the standard tonight is shown cause. It's based on testimony provided tonight, it's administrative in nature, there's no public participation, and you need a simple 3 out of 5 extension. Only one time for 6 months.
Was that clear to you, Mr. Palumbo, that this is a one-time extension?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Clear.
great. Any other comments from the board? During any, are we going to entertain any public comment?
It's administrative in nature, not necessary.
So there is no need for any public input.
Correct.
All right. Mr. Palumbo, do you have anything further to add, or, well, okay, Tony, you have something you'd like to add? I mean, I would say the parking is whatever, as per approved from the original application, whatever parking was approved. I don't recall there being a variance for the parking on this property, so whatever was approved is what we're seeking.
Unfortunately, if they're relevant to tonight's request, strictly whether or not it was showing an extension and detailed reasons related to COVID and consideration.
Anything else from the board? Palumbo, anything else from you before the board considers a motion?
I did not hear what they just said before, but I have nothing else further to add. No.
All right, does anyone care to make a motion on the application for the extension of this variance? We're gonna have to ask the solicitor whether that's.
Here, I would just advise allow him to speak.
Mr. Ambrose, you need to go up to the microphone, identify yourself, name and address, please.
I hope I can brief. I don't want to take up your time unnecessarily. I'm late to the game. My name is Dean Ambrose. I'm an abutter to the property. In Warren, and unfortunately, I've only been so I haven't had a chance to meet any of you.
Mr. Ambrose, can you turn that microphone towards your mouth?
I was working now. The key is I want Mr. Palumbo, who I unfortunately have not had the opportunity to meet either. I prefer not to meet him in the context of this hearing or anything of that nature. I prefer to work out things with neighbors. And it was, I'm reluctantly here, but we got this notice. And so I basically attempted to put together what I could and just determine my own concerns. Just for the record, I want everyone to be aware that I am an attorney in Massachusetts. I have no permission here, not admitted to the bar in Rhode Island. I'm here strictly pro se, and I'm not practicing as an attorney here in Rhode Island. I don't do zoning law. I haven't done it. So a lot of this for me is sort of ad hoc. Gentlemen, I understand there are two things before you, at least according to the notice that I received. One was a request for an extension. The second one was a request for a variance. Site waste treatment. Basically, to sum up my argument, and I just ask for your due consideration. The extension request is there for a purpose. The person seeking the extension think of it. My contention essentially is that, and again, I'm late to the game. My contention is that the initial application was granted. It was originally, and I'm going on hearsay based on my neighbor's explanation. Originally, the intent was to rehab and redo the house. We could maintain the prevalent look of the neighborhood reaction. That's how I moved in. And that's why the zoning law is created. It's to protect the integrity of the neighborhood. And I don't know if any of you have the luck or the opportunity to live in Twisted Point or the area. I love it. What can I say? This area is beautiful. The neighbors are beautiful. And I haven't had anything, I haven't had any issues with anybody. And I'm not here to try and create. Notwithstanding that, there are a couple of things. One is the issue is the on-site waste treatment, which, boy, I got educated quickly. Rhode Island has some of the most strict regulatory procedures in Rhode Island. For the record, I defer in part to Mr. Ferrari.
Excuse me.
I've never met before. With respect to,
Excuse me.
my understanding is that a lot of people who are particularly interested in the area with respect to pollution, environmental control, et cetera, et cetera. And I know at the outset that at least when I was trying to get online for notice of this meeting, up until at least Monday, notice that this meeting had nothing with reference to an application by Mr. Plummer. I checked again this morning, or just before I came here, and there was notice on the meeting, notice of the meeting agenda, first put on to my knowledge on July 21 today, with his application put there.
Was the
So,
posted on the secretary?
my understanding is the notice was given, however, it's not required by law to notify abutters. It's just simply listing the agenda as administrative in nature. I believe we did receive a notice, and that's why it's here, but we don't normally send it out to this type of nature because that's not a practice that should be considered tonight.
The only issue on discussion tonight is whether you want to give the extension.
So there's nothing new here that he's applying for tonight. He cannot apply for anything new. This is within the parameters of what was granted on the date the original application came before us. So whatever the original parameters were with regard to the dimensions for the side yard and front yard setbacks and the lot coverage and the location of the OWCS system, those stand for the previous approved application. He cannot amend or change any of those parameters. So whatever was granted at that time, those dimensions, that is what he extended. Tearing down the house or remodeling the house is not part of the relief. It has nothing to do with the application that came before us. Whether he builds to the lines that we set for the setbacks, whether that's new construction, remodeling, is irrelevant.
What I'm understanding, and the point that I'm making is based on the notice I received, which are the two issues before the two.
There's only one.
Let me clarify that. So those two pieces of relief that you say were granted about a year ago. There's an appeals process, there's timing of those decisions. I just want to post up those decisions, but strictly here tonight, not asking for any relief, just really extension of the vested right, 6 months. That's the only thing that is being addressed tonight.
It says to also notice.
I can't hear a word he's saying.
Within 150.
That was what was approved last
That's
year.
part of the
It's already
original.
been approved.
That's all.
That's part of the original.
So there are two items in the original approval. There is the,
Misunderstanding.
so the original approval was for a variance because he had less than the front and side yard setbacks required. and he was exceeding the lot coverage under dimensional variances. Then he's also got another dimensional variance that was approved because of the OWTS system. The ordinance states it cannot be within 150 feet of a body of water. Very commonly in Twisted, almost entirely, there is no place on anyone's property that is not within 150 feet of a body of water to place this system. So that relief was granted for this. Very common variance in this area because the OWTS is mandated by the state DEM that all cesspools have to be abandoned. And the system that was approved in as part of the variance, I believe, and I don't know otherwise, is it had a certificate of approval from DEM for the system to be installed. We merely approved its location being within the 150-foot boundary the ordinance calls for, but it's impractical in this area. Nothing new here. All the relief that he approved for previously still apply. Want to build a different design of house or different materials, as long as it fits within the parameters that were approved. Yeah.
I'm not sure exactly, and I'm understanding you that there is, it was already allowed in WTS.
Correct. It's already
As I was going through Jeff, and simply that there was nothing that I understood that had been submitted pursuant to the open meeting law. Don't have expertise in this area. Notice we're given someone may in fact object to something to do with something beyond me, but would affect my area. Simply because I am in the area. Development in that area, which is going to change things. There's no question that this is going to change the area. Will affect me. Will affect all of us.
And so the OWTS is an environmental improvement according to DEM. It was mandated that all existing cesspools have to be removed.
Yeah, Google.
10+ years I've been on this board, I've probably heard over 100 applications for an on-site wastewater treatment. The only option in that area is not town sewer with it. So if you can't have a cesspool for DEM, your only option is to manage the wastewater. Approved as part of the variance is approved by DEM that information on file from the original.
That I understand. And just the summary of my contention with respect to that is that had the plans, which I only saw portions, I didn't see submission of what the overall area looks like. But had plans specifically been allowed with respect to a less drastic needs, which may have been smaller development area or something more consistent with what's in our area and in our neighborhood, that may have been more appropriate and complying with zoning regulations. And it's the
Don't overcook this.
If I may,
Sure.
what I would recommend is all that, the entire file is a public record. You can see back when the stamp is the least amount necessary for the application. All that was considered at the time the decision was rendered public, recorded here in town. The decision was brought, and it will be, that you can see.
And the public did have the opportunity to
Correct.
present comment at that time on the size of the development.
You will see the site plan, you will see the reasoning why they approved it, all of the record.
One of my problems, and I came down and I wanted to thank, which we really want to thank Mr. Cavallo, they are very quick in getting back to me along with this chance. Everyone has been wonderful in getting back to me, but I didn't see where certain documents, which I understand there's somewhere, which is, and they are simply what the neighborhood is, what they're consistent with
But again, I mean, we're not going to belabor this any longer. This has been approved. The DEM application for the installation of a on-site wastewater treatment system has been approved.
That permit is already active, if I
Mr.
may.
Colombo, we don't need you to editorialize. So all this meeting was tonight, as I explained to you earlier, was a continuation of the variance. We're not debating, conditions, what was happened. I mean, you had an opportunity to speak. We heard you. Thank you.
Okay, I understand that, and I appreciate the time that you've taken. I'll just state for the record, I will, maybe just in the letter that I would like included in the record before any vote is taken. That's by tomorrow.
The vote has been taken. They voted already to continue the variance for 6 months.
No, we haven't.
No, we haven't. Not
Okay.
yet.
Sorry.
So
To
we have an
me,
approved variance, and we're seeking to now extend that approval for an additional periods. We cannot change anything of the initial approval. Nothing can be altered in what was already approved. You have to come back with a whole brand new application. If you want, 1 inch more on the setback, that's a new application.
I
Let me just say, I live at 62 Shore Drive, so right down the road, I'm familiar with the property. Half the houses already have the OWPS system in there, the other half are not. This house did get approved, and it is, and like you are suggesting that it is too big and out of character, you might be right on that. I believe the neighbors to the south of that house has to worry about the water runoff. But other than that, unfortunately, it's all done. We just have to vote on it. We just have to vote for the extension, which is most likely reasonable in this case. And there's other projects happening in 62 Shore Drive, and I'm sure they'll be up, and your input will be very welcome there.
appreciate that, and I appreciate that. I think I introduced you at least at this meeting or whatever. I don't want to take up any more of the board's time. I just want to state for the record that I have an objection to the notice. I don't agree that this is an administrative. I believe there is an opportunity for you to review the extension reasons for it and perhaps change it and reconsider your opinion. I suggest that the open meeting law is not, in fact, or notice was not provided as required.
I think we exceeded the open meeting law requirement, actually.
You may have, I don't know.
I mean, so if he wants to appeal this, if he takes this.
Mr. Chair, what I would advise is we give an opportunity to speak. You heard testimony here why there's a need for an extension and bring it to a vote if there's a motion. They, and whoever makes the motion, make sure they qualifies with the evidence, show for it.
Right, so again, we'll bring it back to the board. Someone like to make a motion regarding this application.
This is Mr. Reno, and I'll move approval of application 21-39, Nicholas Palumbo, new owner and applicant, 47 Shore Drive, plat map 17, lot 41. Request for an extension of a variance under section 32-77 and 32-89 to demolish and replace a single-family dwelling with less than the required front and side yard setbacks and exceeding the overall allowable lot coverage. Further, that variance was to allow for an on-site wastewater treatment system within 150 feet of a water body in an R40 residential overlay zoning district. In approving this extension of an existing variance, we will note that the variance granted by the board expired July 13th, was granted on July 13th, 2020, and therefore expired on July 13th, 2021. We have heard testimony from the applicant that he was unable to satisfactorily pull permits and start construction on his project due to delays as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, which is certainly an understandable delay under the circumstances. I know many, both in this town and in this state, are suffering from delays and material availability issues as far as the construction trades are concerned. As such, it seems perfectly reasonable to grant a 6-month extension from July 13th, 2021 onward, and that will allow the applicant to begin construction within that new 6-month window.
Second.
Roll call, Mr. Thibodeau.
Aye.
Mr. Nystrom.
Aye.
Mr. Holby.
Aye.
Mr. Renown.
Aye.
Mr. Ellis.
Aye. And the motion is approved, 5-0.
Gentlemen, I just want to, I appreciate the time that you take to hear me. I have to state for the record, I understand the position that no new evidence or isn't reheard. I have to state my objection to that. However, I appreciate, again, the politeness with which you handle this and allowed me to be here today.
Palumbo, the motion was 5-0 to extend the variance for 6 months.
So, moving on.
Just because I love the echo, can somebody please say now batting?
Moving on, or back, as the case may be, to the first item of new business, which was application 2138. Denise O'Brien, the owner, and Michael O'Brien, the applicant, at 665 Metacom Ave, plat 15A, lots 281 and 282, requesting for a special use permit under 3274 to construct an 18-unit apartment complex in the B zoning district. With someone representing the applicant come forward and please identify yourself.
Good evening, board members. My name is Andrew Tyne. I'm the attorney for the applicant and the owner of the property. With me today is David D'Amico, the designer for the project, and actually Mike O'Brien, the applicant, is sitting behind me. Denise O'Brien, the owner of the property, is not here. It's actually Denise O'Brien, RET, a trust, I think, owns the property. So this is a proposed development for 665 Metacom Avenue. The applicant is seeking to put in an 18-unit apartment complex on this property. It currently has a small home on it. It's a large parcel, and it's in a business use district, which allows by special permits the construction of an apartment complex. It just needs to be approved by this board to move forward. And there's a criteria that needs to be met for this type of special use permit to issue. And if I just speak to that criteria briefly, and then you'll hear from David D'Amico and we'll respond to any questions from the board. So the criteria that I see in the zoning ordinance that needs to be satisfied is, first, that the proposed project will be compatible with the neighboring land uses. And we've looked at the uses surrounding this property. Across the street from 665 Metacom is 700 Metacom. It's the East Bay Apartments. It's a large apartment complex, with swimming facilities. It's has many more units than this complex. So this is in character with the neighborhood. I guess if you're facing the property, it's to the right. It's 659 Metcom is Passport Florist. So this is a business use, a commercial use. And that property used by the florist extends all the way to the back of the property. So there's a commercial use which extends the full length of the right side of the property facing the property. And then there's residential use at the back of the property and on the other side of the property. If you're facing the property, it's on the left of the property. With respect to the residential use at the back of the property, this project's proposed to really sit towards the front of the property, where there's going to be really, when we look at the design that's been put together, there's going to be a significant amount of distance between the back of the proposed project and the commercial uses at the end. And also with respect to the residential uses that are on the left side of the property, when you're facing it, they really won't abut this project. With respect to the residential uses, if we look at front of the property and look at the residential uses here, they're going to be adjacent to the parking lot, which is going to be buffered with garage buildings. And beyond that, when we look at other design designs which have been proposed. There's going to be landscaping, trees, bushes, things of that nature, all along that left side, which are going to buffer those residential properties from this apartment building. So we don't believe that there'll be any sort of impact from this project on those residential uses. The next criteria that needs to be satisfied for this type of project is that it won't be a nuisance or a hazard in the neighborhood. We're not putting in any livestock or anything that's going to cause any sort of nuisance or smell or anything of that nature. This is an 18-unit apartment. It's the characteristics of the neighborhood. So we think it's appropriate, and there's no known hazards or nuisances that will be generated from this type of use. With respect to compatibility with the comprehensive community plan, I believe designers met with the planning department, gone through the town's process of understanding what they're looking for in this neighborhood. This is obviously on Metacom Ave, which is a busy street, which has commercial, business, a little bit of residential. So it's appropriate, and it fits with what is appropriate for this neighborhood and what the town, I believe, is looking for, which they're looking for apartments because there's a need. Which takes us to the last criteria that needs to be satisfied, which is the public convenience and welfare to be served. Our understanding, and that's why my client's moving forward with putting together this project, is there is a need for apartment buildings and this type of housing. There's a demand for market rate apartments. Additional inventory is needed to stabilize the pricing, and this is a great location for individuals possibly without cars or need to walk. Because they can access other businesses and commercial establishments on Metacom without having to have a vehicle. So we think this is suitable housing for people that have those needs. With that said, I'll turn it over to David D'Amico to maybe show you a little bit more about the design. And then if you have any questions, we'd obviously be happy to answer. Thank you.
Yeah.
Good evening, board members. My name is David D'Amico, and I am the principal of the firm D'Amico Engineering Technologies with offices at 2080 Mineral Spring Avenue in North Providence, Rhode Island. I am a professional licensed engineer in the state of Rhode Island with, well into my 30 years, 36, 37 years of experience with these type of projects, transportation, utilities, infrastructure. So for the board's benefit, I'd like you to just, what we show is the existing condition survey plan. Essentially, it's the two lots. It's lot 281 and 282. Those combined for an acreage of 2.2 acres. They're essentially wooded in the back, with the exception of the single-family home up in the southeast corner of the property. It gently slopes back. It kind of drops off. It drops off from the highway, right back curb, drops off like almost 3 feet, and then gently slopes to the back. And we end up with kind of a low area in the back area, which tends to be the lowest part of the site. So that's it's a conforming lot to the existing zoning in the area. It is dually zoned, and we'll show you that on the next. The survey didn't pick that up for us, so it's a dual zone. Right here is the dashed dot line. So it's zone B on the front, and it's zone R10 in the rear of the property. We propose to work in the zone B area, and hence the special use requirement for an apartment complex in that zone. We have gone through a good review with the planning board, and we have really refined this design to work within the zoning regs. We're all within the setbacks. You can see this dashed line right here. That's the building setbacks for the property, and the building fits well inside that. We also have a 30-foot maximum requirement outside the zone for pavement and parking. And we utilize that 30 feet just in this area, so we could get the proper parking. The parking requirements for the 18 units is you need 1.5 spaces per unit, and that comes to, I believe, 27. And we show we have 28 here within that. We are showing a little added garage unit, 6 units for 6 spaces for garage, which would be associated with whatever unit would want a garage unit. And the owner believes that would be very attractive for the area. Other than that, it will have a dumpster enclosure in the back, concrete walking walkways around the building with a connection to the existing sidewalk on Metacom Avenue. One thing of note, the existing building, we'd like to keep the existing home, and that would be converted into a rental office and modernized. Okay, let's just address the drainage for the board. So our proposal, if you notice, we've done a series of test holes on the property. And that was something that was required by the planning board for us to actually, have them review and give us a master plan approval. Essentially the groundwater, the seasonal high groundwater, as you probably all know, is relatively shallow. And we have, I believe, like 3 feet of groundwater depth, and it starts going down as you go to the back. So this last one was, I believe, 8 inches. So it's very shallow groundwater. So in having the shallow groundwater, one of our tools that we can use for drainage is we can go with the pervious pavement system.
So we're all set.
Would essentially
We already got it.
take the rain runoff and infiltrate it into the groundwater. One of the key things that allows us to do it, because I need about 3 feet of separation from this system to the groundwater, is that it works out really good with the building, because the existing condition drops off about 3 feet. And what we want to do is, we have elevation 108. We want to be in the back 110. So we want to kind of come up in instead of have it drop down into the site. So this will allow us to have the proper pavement makeup for a pervious pavement system.
So you're actually proposing to essentially build up the height of the parking?
Yes, sir.
To allow for infiltration?
That's correct. That's correct. And it kind of works good for our building type, because we like to have a walkout out the back. So when you're looking at this particular building type, it's more of a 2.5 story in front with a walkout out the back. And that tends to work better for this site. So that tends to be the best solution here for.
You said it was
any
gonna be
drain.
level? The parking area?
Oh,
is
the
level?
parking
Or you
area.
drive up to it?
It goes up, and so the back edge of sidewalk is, the curb line is about 108. So by the time you're in the back, you're about 2 feet up, 2 feet in elevation. But essentially,
What happens to the water there? Does it say it's pervious? Does
Yeah.
it just go through, or will it, the rain's hard, will it run out into Metacom Avenue then, or?
no, it's the pavement will be able to take. Usually, we like the pavement to take a rate of about 20 inches in an hour. Okay. 20 inches of rain over an hour at a time. That's the infiltration rate. That's what we that's what we try to get the pervious pavement to act in, somewhere in that range. 50, sometimes it's 15 inches in an hour, or sometimes it's 20. And then all the sub base underneath it has to work in that manner. And then underneath, we have what they call a stone reservoir. Okay, that's where we store the water. So we have a storage system because most of the time throughout Rhode Island, unless you're in places like Warwick and sandy places, the infiltration rate is not good. You know, a lot of times in here, we're going to be, you're going to have an infiltration rate of 2 inches in an hour. Okay, so that's your infiltration rate into your soil here. All right, because of the makeup, I believe it's a sandy loam soil. So you're looking at those types of infiltration rates. So I have to design my storage reservoir, my crushed stone reservoir, to be able to handle that rate. Okay, so, and usually it's around 10 to 12 inches of crushed stone.
Is that what the middle is, or is that the pipe?
No, this pipe here is taking the roof runoff and putting it underneath that system. Infiltration. All right.
D'Amico, if I could just.
Yes, sir.
interject for a second. So the phases of approval are planning board, master plan, from the zoning for a special use permit, back to planning for the preliminary and final. As I set forth in my memo to members who may or may not have read it, we haven't finalized the stormwater plan yet, and we're not going to finalize it tonight.
Right.
But we can be assured that the planning board is not going to give preliminary or final approval until they're satisfied with the stormwater plan. Thank you.
I did read it, I was just
No, that's fine.
Yeah, excellent and great questions. And just like Bob says, I have not put every number. It's based on my experience. I've done a number, dozens of these right now, right in use now. So I feel very confident, that this is the right tool. So I get a tool. I got a toolbox of drainage, and this is from DM, and this is that tool.
So your representation is that all the stormwater that falls on this development will be handled.
Yes, sir. And be infiltrated just like it does today. Yes, sir.
Sorry?
So that's that system. Oh, one of the other important things is there is water. There is a Bristol County water, and you have your sewer system. So this can be connected to all public utilities, and we have coordinated with those utilities, and this will require a fire sprinkler system. So the landscape plan, excuse us on the annotation here out in the street, but essentially, this is from Diane Sewell. She's a landscape architect, and I certainly do not want to speak for her, but she gave us an extensive, we will need to grade in this area, so we would have to remove the trees along here, so she would come in and put a buffer here. Also, the garage helps buffer that, buffers, the activity in here, and then of course on the north side along the nursery, that would also be essentially screened, and then that's approximately our cut line of the trees right in here, and then it's just a nice front area landscaping, as appropriate for the development.
So according to the plan, the Green Giant Western Red Cedars are forming two buffers. They're going to be 7 to 8 feet tall at the time they are planted. that?
That is the bag and ball, yes. Yup, that's what she's saying, yes.
So it's not, we're not coming in with something that's 12 inches high, and we're gonna wait 15 years for it to grow. You're starting off with plants that are 7 to 8 feet high at the time of plant.
Correct.
Do you happen to know off the top of your head what the mature height of those trees would be?
I do not.
Over 30 if you have.
Is it? A lot, okay.
The cedars go pretty good, but I don't want to be, I mean, I'm not an expert on that, so. But it's a good screening. It's, Diane has done this all over. She's done a number of Mr. O'Brien's projects.
Do you need to take the existing trees down to put that screen up? I mean, those existing trees are.
Well, I mean, we will try. I mean, every time we go into a project, I mean, we certainly save money by not cutting down trees. But it appears that I need to grade in here. I need to grade in here, and I also, you know, want to make sure that we don't have any, so I have kind of a swale grading in here. I don't want any water, anything, even though these properties tend to be higher, I don't want any water coming in here. So we do have grading in this area, and we have grading in the back. So
I think that would probably kill off the trees, the earthwork that has to happen.
Yes, it
Disturb the
Correct.
root systems, they wouldn't be able to.
It's gonna get better off than those evergreens too. I have those trees in my house in Barrington, and the contractor put them in right next to me.
7, 8 feet tall. I've been there 14 years. They're as high as the oak trees. It's amazing. Incredible buffer.
And, you know, this is a front view of the type of building that Mr. O'Brien has built in the past. And as you can see, in this particular case, it has some stairways. In some other cases, we've had to actually build that up. And this stairway here could vary from 3 to 4 steps, depending on that grade. I haven't gone into final on this here, but that's the front view.
And the overall height, whether it's 3, 4 steps, whatever you decide, it's going to be within the parameters. of
Yes, sir.
the-
Yep, we are not looking for a height variance on these. That's one of the cool things about this this design. So you can kind of see how we like to have the back walk out. This is the rear of the building, and we like the walk out. It makes those lower units very attractive. And that's essentially my presentation on what we're proposing here.
The board members have any additional questions on the applicant or any of the team that he brought?
So if I'm looking at the plans correctly, you're gonna have 12 2-bedrooms and 6 1-bedrooms. You're gonna have 2 bedrooms on the exteriors and 1 bedrooms on the interiors.
That is correct. That's correct.
And
Yeah.
these are gonna be all apartments.
These are all apartments. Yep, they're approximately the 2 bedrooms are almost 1,000 square feet. About 850 square feet.
Okay. And we're looking for market rent, not affordable.
That is correct.
And the
Yeah.
town doesn't have any requests affordable.
This was not a comprehensive permit application.
Okay, all right. Okay, I'm good.
Question on the dumpster, the trash removal. Would you be willing to limit the hours on which that could happen so that the garbage truck is not arriving at 6 o'clock in the morning and disrupting the neighbors by emptying the dumpster?
I think we would let the owner, Mike, would you like to speak on that?
So if we were to say no trash emptying before 8 AM, is that
Put his
reasonable?
name on the record, please.
Michael O'Brien, I'm the applicant. But I'm sure it's not a hard thing to do.
So that's one thing we often get concerns about with neighboring properties, noise associated.
I live in a condo, and that's not my concern. It was one of my complaints when I moved in, which they corrected.
And would you also be willing to accept the condition that any lighting, exterior lighting, needs to remain within the bounds of the property? There would be no light trespass onto neighboring properties?
Yes.
Downward lighting.
Yeah, it would have to be shielded lighting, so it's not still in those adjacent properties. By the way, we have had numerous complaints on other issues in town where lighting is interfering with people's enjoyment, spilling into the back of windows, like parking lot lighting, security lighting, things of that nature.
The type of lighting that I use, it's an LED light, and it's a downward. They don't face outward. It faces downward around the building, around the perimeter. So not offensive at all on all of my projects.
Do you have any current plans for parking lot lighting, pole lighting, of anything along those lines?
The two other buildings that I built just like this, I had provisions in there for a parking lot light, and I had to put it in.
So no parking lot like poles, none of that.
So you don't know that until it's built. So what I did on my last project, I have an identical building in Lincoln, exactly like that. And I put a light pole halfway down on the left side that I was going to shine onto the lot. And I simply didn't need it. The perfect middle of the office. My intention was that I needed to straight the parking lot, towards the building. But it simply wasn't.
But we don't have to decide where the lighting is going, what it's going to be. We can just, if we choose, have a condition that any exterior lighting we do install on the property would have to be fully shielded and not emit any light trespass on it. Being perfectly comfortable with it. Other questions from the board? Shall we entertain public comment?
Mr. Ellis, I will say that there is a number of comments in chat from residents on Greg Drive that abuts this from both the Bristol side and I think a little bit of Warren side with respect to conditions that are experiencing now. We heard these at the planning board hearing as well on the master plan. These conditions exist now. So I think the public needs to understand that this project cannot in any way contribute any more stormwater coming off this site than exists now. In fact, it might improve it. But I think as Mr. D'Amico has pointed out, as you go to the west and closer to these properties, the water table is quite high. And that is not anything to do with this project. And so I just want to reiterate that. And then there are a number of members from the public. If people that are on Zoom that would like to comment on this, I'm going to ask you to use the raise your hand icon. I will recognize you and we will give you an opportunity to speak if you choose to.
While we're waiting for that, I'll just say with regard to the grading, the plans that have been presented indicate that by raising the grade towards the back of the property, we're actually directing water away from that lower portion at the back, which is improving the condition that exists today. So it's a reasonable inference from the plans that have been submitted that stormwater containment will be improved on the site for the
So Mr. Ellis, everything that's in chat will be saved on the recording and I just asked that we enter that into the record. So we have that, but there is no one with their hand up at the moment.
There's no one with their hand up. So There was nothing in the chat other than the drainage concern.
That, there were several comments with respect to drainage and existing conditions that in January, there's an ice rink on their street, but again, not all is in advance of this project even being done.
This project, actually, there is more to come up.
Yeah, exactly. They cannot,
They're gonna contain, if there's water running off now, they have
right,
Go
they
forward.
cannot make it any worse.
anything coming up with that.
And I think as Mr. D'Amico said, he's elevating the site, so if anything, the water's kind of, go towards Metacom Avenue. I mean, there are comments with respect to water pressure, but that's, regardless, I mean, that's Bristol water.
And that's because you're at the top of the hill. where the
That's a
tower
Bristol
is.
water.
The-
Bristol County water is,
Tower
right.
basically the same line, so.
I don't know how to raise my hand. I have a question about
Okay,
the,
so if you could just identify yourself, your name and address, please.
my name's Bonnie Howland and I'm at 7 Greg Drive. And I did post in there a picture of what the road looks like in January. It looks like that regularly, and I would hope that maybe this will fix some of our problem. What about the second half of that lot? Is that, I thought we were going to see a fully developed plan for the entire property, not just the commercial part.
I can't speak for Mr. D'Amico, but I don't.
We can ask the question. So what you illustrated on the plans is for an 18-unit apartment building with associated parking located on the front, let's say, third or so of the lot. Is that the extent of the development that you're asking us to permit by a special use permit?
Yeah, yes, Mr. Chairman. One question is if the lot zone changed in the back, the rear lot is an R10, so we cannot do this in R10. If that sometime changes in the future, I'm sure the client wouldn't, he might look to do it, but that's not something that's on the table.
Okay, so what is presented is what you're asking for. So to answer the question, there is at present no development plan for the rear of the lot beyond the portion that is shown on the plan submitted that is between Metacom Avenue and the zone boundary line where the business zone abuts the R10 zone.
It's pretty much gonna landlock.
Ms. Holland, did you hear that?
I did. Thank
So
you.
anything that they want to do in the future, they would have to start this process all over again.
Okay. And traffic getting out of this neighborhood is another one, another concern of many people. And adding 18 to, I don't know, what did you say, 28 cars taking a left or right out of this neighborhood? Is there?
I mean, this project is not of a scale that requires a traffic study. The applicant, did provide some data that, it generates 13 cars leaving in prime time and rush time in the morning, 18, I think, in the evening. We have more cars going in and out of Dunkin' Donuts than this. So, I mean, it's, Metacom Avenue is a state road, so, again, the traffic issue is the traffic issue. It's not, I think the finding is that it's not going to be exacerbated by this project. Are there others on Zoom? There is a Nina.
Yep, this is Pat Nana. I live at 12 Greg Drive. My parcel is both in Bristol and Warren. And just like Ms. Howland's, my question was, I don't buy the whole drainage thing, but I'm not an engineer, so I can't figure that out. I don't believe that it's going to run to Metacom Avenue. I do believe it's just going to impact us. The water tables are a nightmare. I go through a pump every 2 years. And so you'll have, I don't know what else to say to that. But so who would change the zoning in the back to make it not residential that potentially could be developed? Does that come from them? Does that decide, like the planning board say all of a sudden go, oh, let's change this? I mean.
So the applicant, two things could happen. The applicant could make an application for a zoning amendment That would be to the town council. That would be referred to the planning board, and it would require 2 public hearings. As you may or may not be aware, we are looking at zoning changes on Metacom Avenue. I'm not suggesting that this is part of that or not, but there was a public process for a zoning amendment, but it's not solely at the discretion of the property owner.
Okay, so because in our last commentary, Mr. Rueli, and I'm sorry if I butchered your name incorrectly. So we're not creating a hardship. So the fact that he's locked himself in, the only way that somebody could build a house back there is if you drive through the parking lot or my backyard to make those, because they did try to sell that as house lots at one point in time. There was a plan for 4 houses back there and it never went anywhere. And so I just want to make sure that we are not creating the artificial hardship that someday somebody can come back and say, well, I don't know.
We can't create hardships. So, I mean, I think that what's important to understand is that the only access to the rear of this property would be from this developer. And I think as Mr. D'Amico has indicated, and what they've learned through this process is the water table is much more shallow than maybe they understood going into this.
Yes, we heard them when they dug it. The commentary was interesting. Not everybody works and some were home when that was going on. 2 scoops and went, oops, there's water. So yeah, we know that they know it now. So
They were hoping
and I'm
for
not
oil,
being-
but we didn't find that.
We all are.
Yeah, that was the commentary we heard in the back because, we were home. I thank you for presenting it more professionally this time. I have a better understanding, but I'm still very challenged by the water stuff, just for the fact that the tables are shallow, runoff not only on Greg Drive, but if you go down to the lower street, it's runoff there. You go across the way, we just fill up the neighborhood. And I know that we've had a really rainy last month, and it's been a nightmare coming down the street. So you can see everybody's pumps out in the street.
And again, I would just remind you that this is going to require at least 1 more hearing before the planning board, possibly 2, before it gets final approval. We do not have the final stormwater management plan yet.
Well, it's
So
hard to hear you before. The breaking up was challenging.
It is challenging breaking up, yes.
It's hard to do, as they say.
Well,
Right.
we
Is
do
there
thank you for
anything
your
else?
time, and we do thank you for your diligence in making sure that everyone is successful, including the folks that have bought the property. We're not out to not have them be successful. We just want to make sure that my ship doesn't sink. I'm taking it quite personally.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Interesting.
What's the long-range plan for the little house on the property there? I see you're gonna use it as a leasing office. What happens when you're fully leased up or in the future?
Well, I currently own a multiple of apartment buildings, and I want to use that as my headquarters, my main office. That's my long-term plan.
If I may, sure, while back on what's classified unofficial and what was classified property owner. That would, so as the board knows, you can't have 2 principal buildings on the same lot. So in this specific proposal, I believe the apartment complex is the principal building. And current house is considered an accessory structure. Just to let you know, because the apartment complex is doing a special use permit, you also have to give that special use permit for that accessory structure.
Isn't the house on its own lot?
Is it not so lot?
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
It is.
Yes.
I take that back, I'm sorry.
And the use of that structure, the house, as a place of business for your office is permitted use in the business.
Correct. I was just concerned that it was in the table, but I didn't correct it.
All right, is there anyone else on the Zoom that's indicating they'd like to make?
No.
Does the applicant have anything further they would like to add before we have final discussion among the members of the board?
Well, I can tell you, I know the planning board has taken pictures of my past projects, but I put a great amount of effort into these buildings. These are long-term for me. I don't sell them. I accumulate them and I maintain them personally. I can assure my neighbors, my new neighbors, that they will be very proud of that project.
My basement.
Is there any other discussion or commentary from members of the board?
Next time, we're gonna see how the water is diverted.
Seeing anything?
Gonna go up about 12 feet.
Whoever makes a motion, Mr. P is conditional approval, as the project was also from the planning board, conditional approval.
Okay. So would anyone like to make a motion, which will be conditional for this application?
Public report?
No. Other. Okay, Mr. Renaud.
This is
please
Mr.
go
Renaud.
ahead.
I will move approval of application 21-38, Denise O'Brien, owner, and Michael O'Brien, applicant, 665 Metacom Avenue, plat map 15A, lots 281 and 282. Request for a special use permit under section 32-74 to construct an 18-unit apartment complex in the B zoning district. In moving conditional approval of this particular application, we do find that this request for a special use permit will be compatible with the neighboring land uses. This is a higher density residential complex, which will be served by all of the various businesses on the Metacom corridor, which are within walking distance of this facility. There is a multi-residence complex directly across Metacom, so there is ample precedent for this type of development in the area. We find that this will not create a nuisance or a hazard in the neighborhood. We have heard testimony from the developers that all of the stormwater will infiltrate on site, and they are going through the process with the planning department of making sure that all of those stormwater plans are adequate and in place. We have seen landscaping plans to indicate that there will be sufficient planted buffers on both of the side yard lot lines to shield view of this complex from both the neighboring buildings to the neighboring businesses to the north and the neighboring residences to the south, and that the limit of development is kept solely within the business zoning district. There is no development beyond some small quantity of parking to be included in the R10 zoned portion of this lot. We do find that this is compatible with the comprehensive community plan and that the public convenience and welfare will be served in such that it will generate additional housing stock for the town of Warren, and it will generate a variety of housing stock as it is both comprised of two bedroom and one bedroom apartment buildings with more than adequate parking on site. In moving this conditional approval, we will further condition this approval on the fact that trash pickup will not occur before 8 a.m. And we will further condition it that any lighting installed on the property will be full cutoff and fully shielded in nature, and that those lighting systems will not generate any light trespass from the property as measured at the property line.
Any other conditions or amendments? Second?
I'll second. Mr. Renaud made the motion, and Mr. Holby seconded. Mr. Thibodeau.
Aye.
Mr. Nystrom.
Aye.
Mr. Holby. Mr. Renaud.
Aye.
Mr. Ellis.
Aye. Thank you. The motion is passed 5-0. Good luck in your next meeting with planning.
Thank you for your time.
Don't.
One more.
Any administrative matters before we close this building board of review? Board of Appeals?
Motion to close.
So we have a motion to close the zoning meeting.
I will second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the zoning meeting is now closed. We will now open the Warren Building Code Board of Appeals. Quorum is determined on the board. We have the same members sitting as constitute a quorum for the zoning board. The only matter is the approval of the minutes of the June 16th, 2021 Building Code Board of Appeals meeting. Does anyone like approval on the minutes?
I'll move approval of the minutes as circulated.
Okay, is there a second? Aye. All right, Mr. Thibodeau seconded, the motion made by Mr. Jones. All in favor of approving the building board minutes?
Aye.